Hashtag who? Hi entrepreneurs, I'm Vicky Brown, and you're in the right place if you want to engage your team, boost your business, and grow your leadership muscle. You've got an employee who's great on social. They post regularly, they've built a following, and they genuinely like working for you. Maybe they've even started tagging the business or sharing their favorite product on their own. And that gets you thinking, why not just make it official? You could have them do a few day in the life stories, maybe highlight your services on TikTok, or give your audience a behind the scenes look at what makes your company different. It feels real, it feels fresh, and honestly, it feels like free marketing. But before you lean in and start building out your own in-house influencer program, there's something I want you to hear loud and clear. Just because it looks easy doesn't mean it's risk-free. This is a legal gray zone if you don't know what you're doing. And if you get it wrong, it's not just awkward, it could be expensive. So let's talk about what's really happening when an employee starts posting for your business. First off, if it's work, it needs to be treated like work. When someone on your payroll creates content for your business, even if it's just an Instagram story or a quick unboxing video, that activity could legally count as time worked, especially if you're asking them to do it or directing what they say or giving them access to behind-the-scenes information. That matters because if they're a non-exempt employee, meaning they're eligible for overtime or meal breaks, then all of that social media time needs to be tracked and paid. You can't just assume they're doing it on their own time for fun. Now, I know it's tempting to blur the lines, to say, well, they already post stuff like this anyway, or they're just sharing something they're genuinely excited about. But when it benefits your business, when it becomes part of their responsibilities, when you're giving them direction or expecting performance, well, it's work. And the law sees it that way, even if you don't. And posting off the clock? Well, now we're talking compliance issues. You see, another trap that I see a lot of business owners fall into is this idea that social media happens whenever. Maybe you text your employee on Saturday and ask them to go live from the pop-up shop, or you send over a caption idea on a Sunday night for them to post the next morning. Now here's the problem. If they're non-exempt, all of that counts as time worked. So if you're not tracking those hours, or if they're working outside their normal shift and not getting paid for it, well, then you're risking a wage and hour violation. And remember, you don't just have to pay overtime after 40 hours a week. In states like California, you're looking at daily overtime rules. So just one quick task after hours can tip you into a legal issue, and it adds up fast. And the FTC isn't ignoring this either. And just when you thought it was only HR you had to worry about, let's bring in the Federal Trade Commission. If your employee is promoting your brand, even if it's subtle, even if they genuinely love the product, they're required to disclose that they have a material connection to your business. Now, in plain English, they have to say they work for you. I'm not talking about burying hashtag ad in the middle of a caption either. I mean a clear, obvious disclosure that they're an employee. And the disclosures have to be clear and conspicuous. That means easy to see and hear, not in small, hard to read font or buried in a long block of text. It has to be easy to understand. The language should be simple and direct. I work for XYZ company, or hashtag employee. Those are generally clearer than a vague term like hashtag spawn or hashtag collab. Heck, that can be ambiguous even for paid influencers. And unavoidable. The disclosure should be placed where it can't be missed. For video, it should be in the video itself, both visually and audibly, if possible, not just in the description. For post, it should be at the very beginning, not hidden behind a more button. And just remember, no matter what you do, it has to be there. And what if it's not? Well, then the FTC could come after your business for misleading advertising. Sure, they could come after the employee too, but they will almost definitely come after you. And this isn't theoretical. It's already happening across industries. The FTC has taken enforcement action against companies for all sorts of what's considered deceptive endorsement practices, including undisclosed employee endorsements. In fact, they've issued notices to hundreds of companies. The rules are clear, and businesses that ignore them are getting hit with penalties. Your brand is tied to everything they say. So let's shift from legal to reputational risk, because that's just as important. When an employee posts about your business, they become a public face of your brand, even if they're off the clock, even if they're posting from their personal account, even if they didn't mean it to go viral. So what happens when they post something you don't agree with? What if they share a behind-the-scenes moment that accidentally reveals confidential client information, or they talk about internal challenges you haven't addressed yet? The internet doesn't stop to ask if the post was official. It sees your logo, your brand, your employee, and assumes it's all connected. And if the tone, the message, or the timing feels off, it's not just awkward. It can hurt your reputation. And in some cases, it can land you in legal hot water. So, what's the right way to do this? Now, I'm not saying don't use employees as influencers. In fact, when it's done right, it can be one of the most engaging, authentic ways to market your business. But you have to do it with intention and with structure. So start with the job description. If content creation is part of the role, write it into the job description. Be clear, be specific. Don't assume you're both on the same page unless it's in writing. Next, track the time, especially for non-exempt employees. If they're filming, editing, drafting captions, that's all time worked. Build it into their schedule or your payroll system. Don't let it fall through the cracks. Then, check your policies. You need a social media policy that spells out what's okay to share, what's off limits, and what the process is for reviewing content. You also need to update your employment agreements if they're going to be representing the brand online in an official way. Provide training, not just on how to use hashtags, but on disclosure rules, confidentiality, and tone. Make sure they understand the difference between sharing enthusiasm and making a claim your company could be liable for. Build a light review process. This doesn't have to be a big bottleneck, but if someone's posting on behalf of your business, it just makes sense to have a second set of eyes before it goes live, just to make sure it aligns with your brand and doesn't unintentionally create risk. And finally, manage any conflicts of interest. If your employee is also working with other brands, especially if those brands are in your space, you need guidelines around when and how they can post. You don't want your brand showing up alongside a competitor's product in the same carousel. Bring structure to the blur. Right now, the line between employee and influencer is thinner than ever. But your job as the business owner is to bring structure to that blur, not to kill creativity, but to manage risk. Because if you don't, the thing that was supposed to help your brand grow could become the thing that damages it the most. So yes, let your employees tell your story. Let them show what it's really like to work with you or for you. But don't skip the hard part, setting expectations, putting guardrails in place, and being clear about how this fits into their role. Because once it's out there, you don't get to take it back. And as the business owner, that responsibility lands with you. So get ahead of it, be thoughtful, and lead on purpose. And remember, your inspired leadership is the secret sauce to having a high-performance team and a wildly successful business you'll love. I'll see you next time on Leader's Journey.